Welcome to Life Stories. Family is supposed to be a place of love, support, and belonging. But what happens when you realize you've always been second best? When your parents make it painfully clear that you and your children don't matter as much as someone else. Today's story is about one woman's heartbreaking realization and the bold choice she made to finally put herself and her children first. It's a journey of self-worth, courage, and the painful but liberating act of cutting ties. Subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's story. I stood at the departure gate, suitcase in one hand, boarding pass in the other. The excitement of the long-awaited family trip buzzed in the air around me. But inside, I felt nothing, just an eerie stillness, an unsettling quiet that whispered that something wasn't right. For months, my parents had planned this trip, insisting it would be a special getaway, just the adults. A rare opportunity to reconnect. "Emma, you deserve a break," my mother had reassured me again and again. "The kids will be fine with your friend. Just enjoy yourself for once." I had hesitated, of course. Leaving Ava and Noah behind wasn't easy. But after hearing my mother's confident reassurances, I convinced myself it was for the best. I stocked the fridge, left detailed instructions, and video called my babies twice before heading to the airport. For the first time in years, I was allowing myself to embrace something just for me, to be Emma again. Not just Mom. And then Rachel walked in. My sister strolled through the terminal with effortless confidence, a designer carry-on slung over her shoulder. But what made my breath catch, what made my heart drop, were the three little figures trailing behind her. Her children, backpacks swinging wildly, their sticky fingers clutching snacks, their little voices chattering with excitement. Kids, the very same kids my parents had explicitly told me wouldn't be coming. My stomach twisted. Confused, I turned to my parents. "I thought this was adults only?" Mom waved a dismissive hand, as if I was making a fuss over nothing. "Oh, Emma, don't look so surprised." Dad chuckled beside her. "It's different with Rachel's kids. They're no trouble at all." "No trouble." I stared at my sister's youngest, Oliver, who was already climbing onto an airport seat like it was a jungle gym, giggling as he tried to jump off. Rachel must have noticed my expression because she let out a soft laugh. "Relax, Em. My kids are angels. You won't even notice they're here." That's when my mother said it. The words that sent an ice-cold shiver down my spine. "We just love them more." At first, I thought I'd misheard. Surely, she hadn't just said that. Not out loud, not so casually. But then she smiled, her eyes twinkling like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like she hadn't just driven a knife straight into my chest. I let out a dry laugh, shaking my head. "Excuse me?" Mom sighed dramatically. "Oh, don't be so sensitive, Emma. We just mean, well, they're easier. They listen. They're more." She hesitated before gesturing vaguely. "You know, lovable." Lovable. Something inside me cracked, sharp and deep. A slow burning rage bubbled beneath my skin. My mind flashed to Ava and Noah, my sweet, bright, beautiful babies, waiting at home, probably wondering why Mommy had to leave without them. Rachel's kids weren't more lovable. They weren't more deserving. They were just the favorites. And my kids? My kids weren't even worth a plane ticket. I clenched my jaw, forcing my voice to remain steady. "You lied to me." Dad let out a tired sigh. "Emma, don't be dramatic." I could feel my hands trembling. "Dramatic?" I repeated. "You told me, explicitly, that this trip was for adults only. You knew I would never have left my kids behind if I had the choice. And you didn't care." Dad shook his head, exasperated. "Rachel needed this trip more than you." I looked at my sister, waiting for her to say something, anything, to acknowledge how messed up this was. But she just shrugged, completely unbothered. And that was the moment it hit me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was a choice. A deliberate choice to prioritize Rachel and her children over me and mine. A choice they never even considered explaining. Never thought to apologize for. I took a slow breath, my pulse pounding in my ears. For years, I had convinced myself that the favoritism was just in my head. That I was imagining things. That my parents loved my children just as much as they loved Rachel's. But now, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. It was undeniable, and I had a choice to make. Be the quiet, obedient daughter they expected me to be. Or finally stand up for myself. I glanced at my boarding pass. Then at my family. Then back at my boarding pass. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I had to do. I stood there gripping my suitcase so tightly my knuckles turned white. The hum of the airport faded into a dull buzz, drowned out by the storm raging inside me. My mother sighed, giving me that familiar look of exasperation. Emma, don't be ridiculous. You're acting like we left your kids on the street. They're at home, perfectly safe. I let out a hollow laugh. The kind that escapes when you're balancing on the edge of losing control. That's not the point, I said, my voice low and measured, but carrying a sharp edge. Dad sighed again, already tired of my supposed dramatics. We just thought it would be easier this way. You're always so stressed with the kids. We figured you'd enjoy yourself more without them. I could barely believe what I was hearing. Oh, so you were doing me a favor? And Rachel? You figured she wouldn't mind bringing hers? Mom shifted uncomfortably, finally sensing that I wasn't just annoyed, I was furious. She lowered her voice like she was explaining something obvious to a child. Sweetheart, you know how hard things are for Rachel. 3 kids, no father around. She needed this more than you did. There it was again, that phrase. She needed this more than you. Something inside me snapped. You keep saying that. Do you even hear yourself? My voice rose now, the weight of years of neglect and second-place treatment pressing down on my chest. People around us started glancing over, sensing the tension. I didn't care. What about me? What about what I need? Or does that not matter because I'm not your struggling, helpless daughter? Mom's eyes widened, Dad's jaw clenched. Rachel looked up from her phone for the first time in the conversation, rolling her eyes. God, Emma, just let it go. It's a vacation, not the end of the world. And that was it, the final straw. I exhaled sharply, gripping the handle of my suitcase. I'm not going on this trip. Mom gasped. Emma, don't be ridiculous. The flight is boarding soon. Not for me. I turned on my heel, walking toward the exit, leaving them behind without another word. Emma, Dad's voice was sharper now, angrier. Don't you dare act like a child over this. I stopped. Slowly, I turned around and met his gaze. My voice eerily calm. Act like a child? I repeated. That's rich coming from the people who just told me, straight to my face, that they love my sister's kids more than mine. Mom paled, glancing around nervously. Emma, honey, we didn't mean it like that. You meant it exactly like that. My voice cut through the air like a knife. You've always meant it like that. I've just been too stupid to see it. The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel sighed dramatically. Jesus, Emma, stop being so sensitive. My kids are here. What do you want Mom to do? Kick them out? I laughed. A bitter, humorless laugh. No, Rachel, I don't want her to kick them out. I just wish, for once in my life, she thought I was just as important as you are. Mom opened her mouth to protest, but I didn't give her the chance. I turned and walked out of the airport. This wasn't just about the trip. This was about everything. Every holiday where my kids got smaller gifts than Rachel's. Every birthday party where my parents fawned over her children and barely acknowledged mine. Every time I was made to feel like I was less. No more. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my mind was made up. I wasn't just walking away from the trip. I was walking away from them, for good. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers ached. My heart was pounding, but not with anger anymore. It was something deeper, something heavier, finality. I had spent years bending over backward for my family, making excuses, convincing myself that I was imagining things. But today, they had said it out loud. They had finally admitted what I had feared for so long. We just love them more. The words rang in my head, over and over, like a cruel lullaby. I took a deep breath, Then another. The house in front of me was quiet, warm, inviting, home, and inside, the two little people who mattered most were waiting for me. I stepped out of the car and opened the front door. Two small figures came racing toward me. Mommy. Ava threw herself into my arms, her curly hair bouncing as she hugged me tightly. Behind her, Noah clung to my leg, his tiny hands gripping my jeans. You're back already? My best friend, Sarah, peeked around the corner, surprise written all over her face. She had been watching my kids while I was supposed to be on my adults-only trip. I forced a smile as I set Ava down. Yeah, plans changed. Sarah studied my face for a long moment. She knew me too well. Want to talk about it? Later, I murmured. She nodded. No more questions. That's why I loved her. Sarah never pushed, never demanded. She just was. Unlike my parents. Unlike my sister. I turned back to my kids, smoothing a hand over Noah's soft brown curls. Did you two have fun? We missed you. Noah pouted, wrapping his arms around my waist. My heart clenched. They deserved better. They deserved grandparents who wanted them there, not ones who saw them as an inconvenience. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I sat at the kitchen table, my phone in front of me. 12 missed calls, 4 from my mother, 3 from my father, 5 from Rachel. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened our family group chat, the same chat where my parents constantly gushed over Rachel's kids. The same chat where I had spent years biting my tongue, smiling through the hurt, pretending I didn't notice the imbalance. Not anymore. I started typing. I won't be coming on the trip. And I won't be part of this family anymore either. I hesitated for only a second before continuing. I've spent my entire life being treated like I was less. Like my children were less. Today, you made it clear that was never going to change. So I'm done. I hope you enjoy your vacation. But from now on, don't call me, don't text me, and don't expect anything from me ever again. I reread it once, twice. Then, without a second thought, I hit send. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. Then, one by one, I left every family group chat. And before they even had the chance to respond, I blocked their numbers. It was done. I had cut the cord. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. No missed calls, no guilt-ridden messages, just silence. And for the first time, the silence felt like freedom. For too long, I had waited for my parents to see me, to value me the way they valued Rachel. I had spent years trying to earn their love, believing that if I just did more, was more, they would finally treat me and my children as equals. But love, real love, isn't something you should have to earn. I was done waiting. Instead of dwelling on the past, I focused on my children, the only family that truly mattered. We spent the weekend at the park, baked cookies, watched movies under a blanket fort. I laughed more than I had in months. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't weighed down by the need to prove my worth. I was just living. A few days later, Sarah sat across from me at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee. So, she said, raising an eyebrow, how does it feel? I thought about it, about the years of hurt, the endless trying, the moment I finally walked away. I smiled. It feels like peace. And for the first time, I truly meant it. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories for more.